We'll start off with Ron and then BJ and Jay.
Coach, how's it going today?
What's up, Ron?
So I know we've talked about this a couple times, but there have been so many errant snaps this year, and Hank has found a way to corral so many of them and even make a couple plays out of that. As a former quarterback yourself, what does it take? What kind of poise does it take to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think he's playing pretty well right now. I mean, he's making a lot of good decisions, and the snap problem is obviously critical and something we're trying to get fixed. I think the situation this week was different than the weeks prior, where it was a continual, like every other snap was high or low for him. And the two that got messed up on the one drive there was more, we're audible at the line of scrimmage, new center, just didn't get the communication the right way between the center quarterback. So he was snapping it before we were ready. And sometimes you're going to have some bumps there when you make kind of the amount of changes we've made up front to try to get the right combination. So, but it probably goes unnoticed that, him recovering both of those at the time were pretty critical. And the first time we actually almost were able to make up for it because we followed up the first one with a 20-yard gain on a pass play. So, but we got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot. Obviously, that was a big part of the game.
Timing is so critical in an RPO offense. I mean, does that just ruin RPO play when he has to leap for a snap?
Absolutely, yeah. If you're trying to read, whether it's an RPO or a read option, he's going to run the ball. His ability to read at that point gets taken away once the snap's off. So definitely something we're going to have to get fixed for us to be more efficient.
How do you fix that at this level? I mean, I don't mean to insult anybody, but snapping seems like a pretty basic part of the game. How do you fix it at this level?
I think at the first thing you got to do is make sure we're simplifying everything for the centers, just so they're not thinking about so many things that maybe that's where some of the anxiety sets in. But again, I thought he'll take heat for the two snaps on the one drive. But if you look at the game other than that, he was snapping it really well. And it was more of a communication thing where he was just snapping it before the quarterback was ready for the snap because he thought it was a normal cadence when we were audible and out of the play. So just more of a miscommunication thing there. But other than that, I thought he actually snapped it pretty well. As
part of that on Hank, he actually mentioned after the game that some of those bad snaps have come when he's been moving toward the line of scrimmage to check a play.
Yeah, I think that's just, he had gone with Kakani for so long, and him and Kakani kind of, can almost talk telepathically to each other. So having to get Dante, so him and Dante worked together for a long time there for about a month. Now you throw a new center in there. And just when he's audibling, just making sure that he's communicating in a way that the center is able to understand that we're changing the play. And he was going through his process, but, those wires got crossed, and that led to the issues on both of those plays.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Ron.
How's it going, Tim?
Hey, BJ.
Hey, with the offensive line, I know it's been getting a lot of heat, this year, but you look at the numbers and the sacks in the last game. I mean, I know you guys are trying. I think it was your fourth different starting five. What can be done at this point? And do you feel like you're getting any closer to maybe getting that group together, or where are you at with the O-line?
I think the bummer about the stats, and obviously that's where everyone's going to look at, as they should. The bummer with the stats is if you look at the first 12 runs of the game, we got 63 yards on 12 carries, right? So to start the game off, the first three drives, you're averaging 5 yards a carry. You're running the ball really well. And then what happens? Well, you get two snaps that takes away 45 yards, right? And so that gets taken away from your run game. And then as the game proceeded and we got down more, we obviously had to pass the ball more, which led to more sacks. We don't want to throw the ball 50 times a game. And we got forced into doing that there in the fourth quarter. We were down by so many, we had to just start chucking it. But two of those sacks are definitely on the quarterback for hanging on to the ball too long. And I think the other three were just a little bit of a combination of moving guys around. So Ben gets beat at guard, and he hadn't played guard all year. We had to move him to guard. And then Will gets beat during a 2-minute drill there at the end where they're not really set on defense. So I think anytime that the passing numbers increase, BJ, you run the risk of the sack numbers increasing. And obviously the tough part about playing O-line is everyone's going to focus on the 5 to 7 plays that go poorly. O-linemen should work in the shadows. If no one's talking about them, then they're probably doing all right. If everyone's talking about them, then everyone's talking about the specific plays. So the lack of run game is obviously going to be the big focal point. And the bummer for us was we got off to a good start. We were averaging 5 yards a carry, and then a couple of those snaps and sacks, all of a sudden that number's a lot lower than it probably displayed. So The numbers are what they are. We got to make sure we're improving it. But I feel good about that group we started in that game. And I know the sack numbers are high, but I think that also goes with the type of game we had to play. We had to throw a lot of passes.
I think only 2 of the 5 linemen were like recruited as scholarship players to Boise State, like out of high school. I mean, with John and Dooley. I mean, is it a recruiting thing? Is it a coaching thing? Is it a talent thing, a depth thing? Is it a combination? What have you guys been able to put your finger just why the offensive line has struggled? Because it even goes back to last year some before you got here.
Yeah, I can't speak on the recruiting because we obviously weren't here, So, but I can tell you guys that we love those dudes and they work really hard and they take a lot of heat. They take a lot of heat from a lot of people, and it's unfortunate because they are working extremely hard to get it right. And we do care about those guys and they're doing a lot of things really well. But totality, consistency, they're just not hitting those marks that have been hit here for a long time. And that standard is really high. I think it's a combination of a lot of things, BJ. I think our depth is the number one thing I think about. We just don't have a large number of guys right now that can go in there and do the things we want. And so when Kekani goes down and Garrett Curran goes down, all of a sudden those numbers start to dwindle and you're starting to look at like, oh man, now we don't have as many guys that can come in and replace that have had a lot of time to play. So I think we're starting to come out of it. I know guys are probably going to roll their eyes on that statement, but again, I think if you look at the film and watch the first half of the game, those guys were doing a lot of really good things. We just got to do it consistently.
Are you expecting to have Kekani at some point this season?
We're hopeful. We're very hopeful. I know he's hopeful for it too. That's been something that's obviously been tough. He's a great player, and not having your center can cause a ripple effect. So, but we're going to do what's best for him, and we care about him and love him. So we want him to be healthy and feeling good before we start getting down anywhere towards that.
Appreciate it, Tim.
Thanks, BJ.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Jay.
You kind of brought this up, but Tim, the first few runs of the game were highly successful, and on the first 12, you picked up 63 yards, and all of them were like positive runs too. How close do you feel like you are to finding this, and how important is it to eliminate those 5 to 7 bad plays a game that have kind of shaped a couple of these games like that?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think we're looking at a really fine line of where we could be offensively and where we are. The reality is we are where we are. I mean, the record is what it is. The numbers are what they are. And that's what you guys are going to focus on. And you should. As a coach, I can see that we're right there, that we're 5 to 7 plays away from hanging up a much higher number on those guys in that game. And so our focus is how do we eliminate those handful of plays? Where do they come from? How do we get it solved? And we're going to keep focusing on that, and we will get it solved. It's going to happen. With as successful as we are right now in the pass game, we just got to get the other parts of the offense together. And again, I think it's new for guys and they're getting more comfortable with it. We have been moving guys in and out with injuries. But that's no excuse for some of the plays we're having right now. And as long as we can stop shooting ourselves in the foot, get those 5 to 7 plays figured out, Jay, I really think we are close. But sometimes talk is cheap. We got to put it together, and I think we will. I believe we will.
When it comes to Hank Bachmeier, obviously he was put in a situation he had to throw the ball 48 times. A lot of those situations, the defense knows you guys are throwing the ball. He's going 4th and 2, head first in the linebackers trying to move the chains. It looks like he's sporting a knee brace. Where is Hank right now, mentally and physically? Because if you see him on the field after a loss, you can tell it weighs on him.
Yeah. I think he's playing really well, and I think obviously quarterbacks are going to be judged as they should be by wins and losses. I mean, that's really what quarterbacks are going to live by in the game we play, whether it's NFL or college. It's going to be how successful was the quarterback, right? And that standard is set even higher here because the all-time winningest quarterback played here, right? So we all know where that number is. But as his quarterback coach, I would tell you he is playing tremendous football. And I hope everyone understands if you can throw 72% completions for almost 400 yards, you're playing pretty dang good. So I think he's doing everything that we want at the position right now. And I still think he's making mistakes that people don't even see that we can correct. So I still think his best football is ahead of him. And he's always going to hold himself accountable to when we don't win games, because that's what leaders should do. So I'm proud of him for that. He believes he can play better. I believe he can play better. But I would defend him and say I think he's playing pretty well at the same time. I mean, some of those plays he made in that game were pretty outstanding. So he's doing a lot of things behind the scenes. He's working really hard, but we're going to hold him to a high standard. I still think he can play better. He believes that too. And I'm excited because if he can play even better than what he's playing right now, I think that's going to be a high level.
More for me. Every week we ask you for your reaction to Khalil Shakir, but he's just so darn consistent now with these one-hand grabs. I'll shift over to Steph Cobbs, career high 10 grabs, career high 132 yards, gets in the end zone a pair of times. We heard everybody saying that Steph was on the verge of having a big season, but now he's backing it up. So what has allowed Steph to have this success?
Well, I think it starts with his work ethic and just how hard he's pushed himself to get to this point. You know, your heart breaks for a guy like him because he really was playing at a dominant level. And then, like we were talking about Will Ferraro, right? He plays really well, but he has the 2 snaps, and that's what you guys are going to focus on. Or Steph has a career day, but he fumbles the ball and has the 1 ball bounce off into a pick. And that's all a lot of people are going to focus on. And it's a shame, but it comes with the territory. I think he's a fantastic player. I think Octavius Evans is a fantastic player. I mean, what that guy did in the game too was pretty remarkable. So if you told me that Shaq was only going to have 4 catches for 70 yards, I would have said, man, what the heck am I doing? I got to figure out my life. But Steph had a big day. Octavius had a big day. Kurt Rothdahl caught some passes. So I think we showed other guys can go. Our focus is to still get Shaq a lot of touches, and we got to get him more than 4 touches in a game. That's not enough. But I thought everyone saw if we can get Octavius and Steph going with the rest of those guys, we're going to have a pretty lethal group. I believe in Steph Cobbs. I'm very proud of him. I know he's going to hold himself accountable to those 2 plays, but I hope he knows how good he is and how much we care about him. He's going to continue to play well.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Jay.
Go Mike, Chris, and Will.
Tim, George Holani, when you don't have him from start of the season to the finish of the season, or the start of a game to the end of a game, how much does that change? How much do you miss George Holani when you don't have George Holani?
That was a tough blow, Mike. I mean, I think it was an emotional blow a little bit for a lot of us just because we care so much about George. And he had worked so hard to get back. And it has been tough for us to get in a rhythm in the running game, without your guy. And all of a sudden he goes down again and we're back in the same spot, right? So the positive is I do think Cyrus is doing some good things. And I think we got to see Andrew. He popped a big run there in the second half, and he can do some good things too. Hoping to get Taquan Tyler going a little bit and keep bringing Tyler Crow in there as well. We got some guys that can do it. But like you said, Mike George has done it at a high level, and he's part of our leadership group for a reason. So that was a tough blow for us, but one that we got to overcome.
When protection doesn't go well always on the offensive line, sometimes you can go to the edge and depend on a tight end, or sometimes you can go to the backfield and depend on a running back and some pass pro. You didn't have Riley Smith, who's learning how to be a blocker. You didn't have George Holani, who I've always thought was a hell of a pass pro guy. How much do the edges, how much is the pass pro in the backfield leading to your offensive line and protection problems right now?
Yeah, I think the sacks in this particular game, other than the one there to start the second half, that was more interior stuff. Our guards and center got beat. But normally, yeah, you're going to have tight ends and tailbacks that are going to help out in protection, and they've done a good job all year. And we have multiple ways to help tackles and chip guys or bust guys or however you're going to do that. But I think if you look at the protection, really the bulk of the sacks have come in 2 games, really the Nevada game and the Oklahoma State game. And so you look at both those games. In those scenarios, we had to end up throwing the ball a lot more than we really wanted to, and that's going to lead to more pressure, Mike, just because they know we're throwing it. And so we got to do a better job, again, establishing the run game like we've all talked about so that we can be balanced and not put our guys in a position where they're throwing it so much. And then we got to do a better job at quarterback, making sure we're getting rid of the ball so that all that comes together. And so I think it's a deeper conversation than just helping out the edges,
Tim, appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, Tim, kind of along those lines, you guys are averaging 1 yard per carry before contact. How much of that is on the line? How much of that is backs? I mean, is it a mix?
I think whenever you're getting contact that early, Chris, you got to look at what's going on up front for sure. I mean, that's definitely something early on in the year. UCF game for sure. Oklahoma State game for sure. A lot of negative runs, a lot of negative plays there. That's going to go with what's going on up front for sure. So anytime that's taking place, I think that's a big part of it. But again, I think our issues, Chris, go back to, you look at this game again, we lost 97 yards of offense, right? So I think we gained around 410 when you take that 97 away. If you add that 97, you're looking at over 500 yards, and now you're running for, whatever the number increases. So we got to look at the negative yards that come from the sacks, the bad snaps, because those all get taken from the run yards, right? So you look up at the scoreboard or you look at the sheet at the end of the game and it says 28 yards rushing. But in reality, you lost 97 yards, and that came away from your run game. So we got to figure out how to eliminate the negative plays, those 5 to 8 blunder plays that Jay was kind of talking about earlier.
And does that impact your play calling when you know that, the running game has been getting hit so quickly that you feel like maybe you have to pass it more, or is that just how you typically want to run the offense?
No, it's obviously you don't want to be pass heavy, I guess, if that's the question, and I think in the UCF games, Oklahoma State games, it was apparent that we were struggling to get started in the run game. So we had to lean on the pass. This game, I thought the tragic thing, Chris, was we were running the ball really well. And so early on in the game, we were really balanced and running the RPOs and getting 5 yards a carry and then dropping back, getting the tempo going. So there was a good mix. And then the third quarter happened where there was a lot. I think we had 3 one-play drives, right, where we turned it over on the first play. And so when that happens, now you're down by 17 points. Now the run game kind of becomes obsolete. So, again, I think one of my favorite quotes, again, is like, balance is an illusion, right? We all talk about we want balance. I want to be balanced. I want to be balanced. But, balance is an illusion. What we seek is fulfillment, right? We seek joy. So, I'd love to be balanced and say we're the best running team in the country and the best passing team in the country. But at the end of the day, I really just want to seek fulfillment and seek joy. And we're going to feel fulfilled if we can get some victories here. However we get to those victories, I'm going to be happy whether we run it for 300 yards or throw it for 300 yards. We'll figure out a way to get that done.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Speaking of joy, whenever we've talked with Octavius Evans the last couple of years, in the last couple of weeks especially, seems like he's having a lot of fun. What have you seen out of him this season?
Dr. Ock, as I like to call him, or Doc, is someone that puts a smile on my face every day. You try not to have favorites, kind of like your sons, right? Like I got 3 sons, trying to have favorites, even though my 3-year-old is testing me every day, right? So, but I love that kid, man. He is an awesome, awesome young man and has battled his way through a lot of things in life. Had a tough COVID year last year, battling through a lot of things. He is a tireless worker. And that's why he was a captain for our last game. If you come out to a practice, that guy is practicing so hard that we got to tell him to calm down with the GPS numbers every day. And had to go out of the game with an injury, took him into the locker room. He was fighting doctors off, got his way back in the game. Super proud of that guy. And, when I talk to scouts or people around the league, and Shaq is obviously a tremendous player, but I have a lot of belief in Doc. And I think he's going to have even more contributions as the year goes, not only as a player, but as a leader and who he is. So I'm very proud of him.
You look at BYU's defense. What stands out to you about them?
Where do you start? Very, very talented group. They fly around to the ball. They have a system that they really believe in. They're very confident. They're very long. They get hands on a lot of footballs. They cause a lot of turnovers. They're very stout up front. We got our hands full. They are a tremendous group. They've earned that ranking, and especially playing at home. I mean, if you watch the film from the end zone copy, the cameras are shaking. So we're going into a tough environment, but I mean, what better environment, what better way to get this thing figured out? We talk about finding consistency. We're talking about challenging ourselves. We got a lot of people doubting us. You know, people want to say a lot of negative things. What a great opportunity for us to stick together and to rise to the challenge and go play a top 10 team on the road, where I'm sure a lot of people won't give us a lot of chance. That sounds like a great chance for potential, you know, Will.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep.
Paul J, we'll go to you.
Sorry, I'm new to this. Coach, BYU has been noted for some kind of ticky-tack things that they've done defensively over the years. Granted, new coaching staff, et cetera. Do you prepare your team for this in any way, or do you not even mention it?
When you say ticky-tack, Paul, do you mean like stuff after the play kind of things? Is that what you're talking? Okay.
Stuff after the play kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yep. You know, I think that's one of those things. It's football, Paul. I mean, I think there's going to be everyone does that. You know, I think if you come to one of our practices, you'll see our guys do that back and forth to each other too, right? I think if you're a competitive team and you believe in what you're doing, you're going to be. Some guys are going to be really vocal about explaining that to you after every play, and some guys aren't. So, you know, if they do that, I got belief in our guys that we have composure and we'll play with a lot of poise but we'll compete as well. So that just makes it more fun, I think.
The old thing about, you know, you'll win a game if you run the ball, stop the run, and don't turn it over. All of that kind of fell apart against Nevada. So are you stressing that this week? We got to run the ball better. We can't turn it over against a good team.
Yeah, I think the turnovers definitely, Paul. I mean, if you look at that game, it comes down to our 3 turnovers on offense. And you start the second half, you got some momentum going. I think we had 4 drives in the first half. We scored 3 touchdowns on 4 drives. And the one drive we didn't score was the snapping drive where the ball was snapped all over the place. So we're feeling pretty good offensively. And then we come out in the first play, sack fumble. That's just a momentum drain, right? So it's definitely the turnovers that we focus on more than how well we can run the ball. And again, I think I totally get the criticism. And like I told you guys before, it's totally warranted, right? If we don't run the ball well, that's on me. It's not on the O-line. It's not on the tailbacks. That's on me. We got to figure out a way as a staff to create positive runs for our guys so we can find a situation where we can not just lean heavily on the pass to move the ball. But I would tell you guys that it's important as a leader, as a coach, or as a teacher that, like you were saying, Paul, if the message is, hey guys, we have to run the ball, we have to run the ball, we have to run the ball, that's going to create a lot of anxiety and a lot of angst in that situation, right? We have to do this. We don't have to do anything. What do we want to do, right? We want to run the ball better. Well, if we want to run the ball better, then we need to improve in these things, right? Our fundamentals, our techniques, our physicality, our ball security, you know, our scheme, whatever that is. So we're focusing on what we want to do, Paul, not what we have to do. We want to run the ball better. And I
so
really
you don't tell them, don't fumble.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Hey, let's have great ball security. Right.
Right.
So I'm a real believer in that. What we want to do is we want to run the ball better. We want to be more physical. And that's not to please the critics. That's just because we want to run the ball. We want to be a physical team. So I'm a believer that we're going to do that. And I thought we were on the way to doing it last week. And we'll keep swinging that hammer, Paul, and it's going to bust loose.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Tim, appreciate the time. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week. Appreciate you.
Recording stopped.
Thanks, Tim.